What is happening, everybody? This is our Pitcher List Live Pitching Stats app. It is for PL Pro members, and I'm going to show you how I use it to translate all the stats to give you a tutorial of the stats that matter during a pitcher's start, and also the kind of tools that you get with PL Pro. So what you do is you put in a certain game date, you choose one of these games, and then you'll have the pitchers here. You have the starter for the home team, and then the away team first two. You also have, of course, the final with in green. The winner of the team. Now you have also the pitching line right here as well, which you can link to if you want to send it around to at least refer to yourself. This is the stuff I really want to show you of like how powerful this is. So how I use it for every night for the SP Roundup. You have, of course, your pitch types, and you have how many they're thrown, and you have velocity. Right now, these marks are relative to last season. We are updating them, I believe, within a week to showcase them relative to the average thus far this year. And you can see that, of course, this knuckle curve is different. It's just a different designation. It really was the curve last year. But I'm going to go through each of these columns and showcase how I use them and what references you should have. So usage, what you normally see, you should just understand the pitcher a little bit more. But more so what we normally see from fastballs in general, or you see a range from 40% to about 50 to 60% usage at most. 60% is kind of on the high end these days. It used to be the big one back in the day. Nowadays, you normally see underneath 50% or around 50. And if you see 60 to 70% combined, that is very much on the higher end. We have this also separated out that you have versus right-handers and versus left-handers. It is so important for everyone to understand that pitchers have an approach against right-handers and they have an approach against the lefties. So if all of a sudden you see him throw no changeups in a game, it's probably because he didn't face the opposite-handed batter. Changeups are generally reserved for the opposite-handed. So same kind of thing with sliders at times, or cutters and curves, etc. Pitch types have usage for different sides of the batter's box, and it's really important that you use this. So this is just based on the total pitches against right-handers. So that is how many, let's say through 10 pitches against righties, and through 5 four-seamers, that would be a 50% four-seamer rate, okay? Extension. This is one where I'm a huge fan of extension. What extension does is says when you release the ball, how close are you from the mound closer towards home plate. It's very simple. If you have 60 feet of extension, that means you throw the ball like 6 inches to get to the plate, right? Duh. Okay. So 6 is kind of bad. 6.5 is like the neutral for me of saying it doesn't really affect things. It's kind of what batters expect. Now, once you get to 7 feet, that is kind of like the golden threshold in my mind of having an impact that is twofold. One, you add like about a tick or so of velocity to whatever they had because it's just reduced time. If you go down to 6 feet, by the way, it's like -1 tick. And then when you get up to 7.5, it's kind of 2 ticks harder. Well, like 5.5 and below is like 2 ticks lower. That's a rough estimate. It's not exact, but think of it that way of just how pitches can be better. Also, it makes the tunnel last longer. And what the tunnel means is how long it takes for batters to identify a pitch based on its movement out of the hand. So what I mean is, let's say you throw a four-seamer that's completely straight, and then you throw a cutter off of that. That cutter's movement isn't going to move right out of the hand. It takes a moment before then it starts its movement. And the more extension you have, that means that separation from the four-seamer to the cutter movement is going to be later in its path towards the plate, right? It's going to happen at a closer distance to the plate, which is obviously better for the pitcher and harder to distinguish. So this is why I say, guys, with 7 feet of extension, I love seeing a four-seamer and then a sinker and or a cutter, because that tunnel is going to be longer at that higher velocity, and it's going to be longer at that bigger extension, which means it's harder to distinguish, and thus the four-seamer, the sinker, and the cutter will all benefit from having that larger extension. So when you see 7 feet and you see a guy like 91, 92, you can say, oh, wait, hold on. I can see how that might work. Like Bailey Ober, who's actually a 90, 91 this year, but he has like 7.5 feet of extension. That's why that 90 is not the same as someone else throwing 90 at like 6 feet of extension. You just don't really see that in the league because that won't be effective, okay? Now you have iVB and you have iHB. This is essentially just vertical movement and horizontal movement, okay? The I is saying that we are not taking it from the raw data, and we're actually doing some calculations to showcase a better representation of actually how much movement there is. Understand that there's release point involved and extension involved and gravity involved and like just how much stuff goes into the expected movement of this pitch, kind of, right? Now, I shouldn't say expected because that's a whole nother thing based on where the ball is released from the hand is essentially if you're high up with your arm angle or if you're low, batters innately expect the ball to move differently. We know this about if you go on top of the ball more, you're generally going to have more spin efficiency. That is, the ball is moving in the way of the movement. That is, like if you're spinning this way and the ball's going up, that's not the same direction as if the ball's spinning this way and going up, right? That's all that spin efficiency means. That's the same exact term as active spin. That's synonymous. So Nick Pivetta throwing over the top like this has a ton of active spin or spin efficient, and that means that he's able to generate more vert, right? IHB is the same term. IVB, invert, induced vertical break, those are all synonymous, same terms, okay? So what I'm trying to get at is expected movement based on arm angle is a different thing than IVB and IHB. Expected is like if you go over here, expected to go up more, and if it goes underneath it, then it's like, oh, it gets more drop than expected from the arm angle. But that would be different if he's coming at the side more, okay? That's the kind of stuff there. That's advanced. We'll have probably another video on that. But just so you know, with IVB, generally you see around 16 is the expected. So 15 to 16 is kind of dead zoney. That is, batters are used to that. So once you start seeing 17 or 18, that's like, whoa, that's pretty good. And that means you can throw higher four-seamers as they might go above where the bat is expecting or where the batter is expecting the ball to go. You on the other side of it, underneath 15 is starting when you get to drop. And when you get to 13 and 12, 11, that's actually being more of a drop of a pitch. Really what you should be focusing on when IVB is what is the difference on four-seamers. Really, IVB and extensions speak more so to four-seamers, but it also means how much drop you're getting. So like -3, and I'll show you guys down here with that too. This is not a large amount of drop for a curve. And I'm going to get more into movement stuff, I think, down here. But just note about the difference. It's 18 to -3, which is a 21-inch difference between four-seamer ride going up. I hate that it's called ride. It should be rise because I used to call ride horizontal break, but we call that run now, and I just avoid ride. But this is 21 inches of going up versus down. Okay, you want the bigger gap, right? Cool. IHB is, again, horizontal movement. How much are you going this way? The biggest thing here is that it's more so for sinkers, otherwise known as two-seamers. We don't have one here, but those are generally really effective around 17 inches. When you see 17 inches of horizontal break, that's when it's like, oh, that's great. And sometimes you get some ridiculous things like Michael King throwing in a windy San Diego, where you get like 20 to 22, and that's just like, what? That's insane. So that means that you get a lot of movement like that, and you generally want to throw that inside to right-handers. So let's move on from this. This is more important, I think, for success, unless you have sinkers or you have sweepers and that kind of thing. Sweepers would be negative the other way. Negative versus positive is a question I get a lot. Negative is going glove side. Arm side is going positive. Okay? Just think of it that way. It's just looking at it as like a graph this way, and then with your arm going like this versus that. So it might not be mirrored. I'm so sorry, but if you're just staring at an x-axis, if it's going to the right, it is positive, and that's arm side for a righty. All right. You have height adjusted VAA. I know this is a very annoying acronym. And HAVAA. This is attack angle. Okay. Also known as VAA. The difference between height adjusted VAA and VAA is actually very simple. But first I'm going to explain what the concept is. Here is the strike zone. Okay. The pitcher is throwing a ball to this box. The thing is, the ball can come in at different angles. If you're throwing it from like a top of a building straight down, it's going to be very steep. It's going to be coming in like this, okay? However, if you throw it from your knees on the ground straight at it, it's going to be coming in straight like this. Two different angles, right? So the bat path, when a batter swings, is never just, it's not always the same. When you are low, the bat path is actually going to be very flat. When you're swinging high, it's actually going to be very steep. So height adjusted VA, or really VAA, is saying what is the angle of the ball coming in to the plate. Okay, that's VAA, and VAA itself is dependent on where it's located. So it will say, well, yes, this angle, if it's located down, is going to be different than when it's located up. I don't like that, because what I really want to know is if the pitch is thrown to the middle, what is the general attack angle for the pitcher across everything? I want to know what they're capable of, right? Not just what the results were. And that's what height adjusted VAA is. It's just saying, hey, if the ball is thrown to the middle, what is it? And that gives me a reference point for what the pitcher is capable of. Okay? I call this attack angle. It's just a lot nicer to say it like that. And when it comes to attack angle, if you throw it upstairs, the bat path being steep means that you want to be very flat to get whiffs on four-seamers. Essentially, this is height adjusted VAA, or attack angle is most important really for four-seamers, maybe sinkers. I'll explain that in a second. You want this to be flat over here, and then when you're down, you want it to be steep. And sinkers are where you're going to get more drop, thus you're going to get more of a steep angle, right? Because the bat path's going to be flat, and you want it to be steep. And think about it this way: of the bat is going like this at this angle. If you come in flat, you'll see that you only have like a few intersection points. But if you're coming in steep, you're going to have more intersection points. So that means the bat is going to make more contact because it's going to be along the path of the ball more than if it were like this. Okay? So that's what attack angle is all about. And that's what height adjusted VAA is. 1.0 is neutral. That is pretty much just saying it's neither flat nor steep. When you go lower on that mark, that is closer to 0 or negative. So here you have a 0, 0. That means it is steep. Okay? 1.0 is the neutral. I might even just ask Kyle Bryant to make 0, 0 the neutral, but whatever. We've established it like this. And when you get to, so that's very steep at 0, 0. When you get to like 0.7, it's when I start saying it's a steep one. It's negatively impacting high fastballs. But when you get to 1.3 or 1.2 on the other side of it, that is flat. And that is when it starts helping pitchers. I would say 1.4 to 1.5 is when I start saying, oh, hey, this is actually really good and you should throw upstairs. I see 1.6 from guys. I'm like, dude, you should be throwing this as a flat fastball upstairs. You will have higher chances of whiffs because the timing has to be just a little bit more perfect as the intersection points get smaller and smaller for that, or fewer and fewer, I should say, for that steep angle. So for four-seamers, you generally want to see above 1 at 1.3 or higher. And for sinkers, you want that to be as steep as possible. Okay, I can't tell you off the top of my head what I really want to see with that one, but I want it definitely to be steep. And the steeper, the better. I would say if you get to like 0, 0, that's a really good one. Okay, but like I think it's like 0.5, just really relative to the fastball or so. But you want it to be steep, and then you want it to be low. So if I see a guy with like a 0.6 attack angle, height adjusted VAA, I'm thinking to myself, man, maybe you're going to get more effective fastball sometimes down. But if you have vert with it, it kind of counteracts a little bit, right? It's kind of weird. So I would rather chase the vert than I would the attack angle. If it's 0.2, I think you're going to not really have a fun time necessarily with this, because even though it's going up, you're going to be, this is more about where the bat should be, and this is more about the timing. Think of it like that. So like, for example, with vert, it's about, okay, cool, I think the ball is going to be right here. This means actually, aha, it's over here. But then velocity and height adjusted VAA is about when should I swing so that I'll hit the ball in the path of this, right? If it's slower, you have more time to do it. If it's, fast, it goes like that. But it's how many times you get a chance to hit it, essentially. It's travel is height adjusted VAA, right? How many intersection points would there be? I hope that makes sense of like height adjusted VAA and velocity are about timing, same with extension, while vertical break is more about where do I swing. Okay? Strike percentage. Strike percentage for a fastball, I always want to see above 65%. I'm okay with 60% and higher, but you will see days where they have high walk rates, like we actually saw, I believe, with Pepio yesterday, someone else who had 60% plus strike rates on everything, and they had 4 walks. No, it was Jack Leiter. Haha, 60%, right? That is why he had those 4 walks, because when he needed it, he didn't have it. 83% here from Robbie Ray is hilarious. Called strike rates, this is, I think we've gone over this a bit, and whiffs, you generally want to see, anything above a 14% for a fastball is good for a day. Anything above 20% is really what you want for a secondary pitch. Sinkers generally don't get whiffs. They get more called strikes. Four seamers getting called strikes is kind of weird to me at times, but that's just life. CSW, static created in 2017. I made the guess at the time that 30% or higher was good, and the average is 28.9 or something like that. CSW is just a combination of these two. It's called strikes plus whiffs, and then over total pitches thrown for that one. And then xDAMAGE. This is one that confuses a lot of people, and I totally get it. Savant has their stat xWOBACON, or xWOBACON, which is essentially just saying on a 2D plane just saying when the ball is hit, it's just exit velocity versus launch angle, and just looks at it 2D, not the direction, not like toward the third baseman or first baseman or left field or right field. It's just saying on a 2D plane, they have this chart of like what the expected result is essentially, right? Of it being a home run, it would be 4, and all this stuff, right? So that's xWOBACON. We create our own version of it by adding spray angle. That is where it's going, left field, center field, right field. Is it down the line? Is it in the gap? That kind of thing. So we called it 3D xWOBACON, but it's just too large for columns, so we just called it xDAMAGE. And for this, we actually have a nice tooltip. So you can click on it. Actually, I think it's just hover. There you go. So league average is about 380. Essentially, this is just a quick way to see like what burned them on a given night. Okay. So this is the expected, this is the whole movement chart. Now, as you can see, this is 24 inches at the top here of iVB. This is 24 inches of arm side. Okay. Now, as I said before, iVB and is all about going towards the arm is positive and going away from it is negative. So this is a lefty with Robbie Ray, and this is looking at the catcher, which, let's be honest, way better than looking from the catcher to the pitcher, because we all see the angle of this. This is how it looks. So imagine Robbie Ray pitching, and this is how we see it, right? And this means you kind of have two-plane movement. This, if you throw it over here, that means you have cut action, right? The ball's going over this way. This is pretty cool. You want to see it like, you want to go you want to go as high as you can first with a four-seamer, then you want to go more, I think, generally this way. That's generally how I like it. The cut action stuff means you generally don't get as much, vert usually. But, I mean, this is fine. This is good. It just means he gets it upstairs, and that's cool. Changeup coming off of that. The best changeups in baseball are like those kick changes, and you want to see a bigger drop generally between four-seamer and changeup. Okay, so the bigger the drop is just like you want down. You don't really want more horizontal, because horizontal is actually easier to adjust. Think of it this way, of a pitch being slower, and the batter needs to stop the bat, and the easiest way to do that is to push out the arm, right? Instead of pulling it down. So it's better to beat guys going down than away on changing of speed. It's why we like gyro sliders actually generally more than sweepers. It's more effective. All right, especially for opposite-handed. But that's just me and whatever. Anyway, you have this changeup. This is okay. It's fine. Doesn't showcase velocity inside of this one right now. This is slider. And this honestly looks more like a cutter. Why do I say that? Because the difference in movement is not massive. I see a lot of people being really, don't understand why 0-0, like they see that movement, which is right here for this curveball. What that means, does that mean it doesn't move? I mean, I guess it doesn't relative to everything, but it does relative to, like 0-0 movement technically is if there's no spin on the ball, where does it go, right? And the thing is, it's all relative to the fastball. Okay, so just think of it that way. It's don't really care about the exact 0-0 or whatever. Care more about relative to the heater. And this is actually very minimal, which is very interesting for this slide. You would think with something like Robbie Ray's that is such a big whiff pitch, you'd have it more closer like this. But the thing about it is that it's actually very close to his velocity. It is 87.5 versus 93, which is really just a 5.5 mile per hour difference, not like the big 10 that you might see of like Hunter Green goes from like 99 to 89, right? And that gives it more time for that movement essentially. So because of this, it's actually harder for batters, because it's a closer velocity gap, it's harder for batters to make an adjustment off of it on both velocity and then make this kind of adjustment movement-wise. So that's why this one is effective. The curve having this much drop is good relative. Generally, we see things down here for curves. Those are the big ones. But because this is at 81, when you see curveballs above 80 miles per hour, and especially ones that are underneath 15 mile per hour difference, Eno will tell you the stuff plus rates go up for curveballs, especially like 84, 85. Just think of it this way: you're getting a lot more movement and at velocity, right? It's always a trade-off of how much movement you're getting versus how much velocity you're getting. When you lose velocity, it's generally to get more movement. So if you're able to maintain a fair amount of velocity and also have a good amount of different movement, which you do have here, it can be very effective, right? So that actually does work really well for Robbie Ray. Now, where does he want to locate it? This is a question I get a ton about, like, what is the ideal thing? I'm going to tell you really quickly right now, if I'm Robbie Ray, what I want to see. Four-seamer is a vert pitch. You want to see that generally upstairs. With him, you want it to just generally be inside the zone for both batters, okay? But remember, lefty versus righty, guys are going to have different things. So for lefties, generally what you're going to see for a left-handed pitcher to the same-handed batter, I mean, really just anything, but I'm going to start with lefties here. Their approach is always going to be, what is their breaking ball? Every single lefty has to have a breaking ball. It's literally why Cole Reagan's developed the sliders, because he needed something better against lefties. You're going to see that, you want to see that always over here. This is a mistake game, by the way. These are not good sliders. Imagine the batter here and them just hooking it, right, to right field here. These are mistakes. He wants them like this all the time. When it comes to the fastball, some guys like to go away over here and then set it up if they have a gyro slider. And by the way, a gyro slider means that the movement is not this way, it's down, okay? Down is gyro. This is sweep. This is more two-plane on like the cutter plane of like being closer to it, which is two like this. When we say two-plane, if this slider was all the way down over here, you can follow it. It goes one plane and two plane, okay? So this one over here, cool. If it's a sweeper, you generally see it all the way over here. Sweeper would be just one plane over that way. In gyro, you got to make sure it's down, right? So this is kind of two-plane, cutter-ish, fine, it should be over here. Okay. Fastball is going to be over here. Doesn't throw changeups against them because same-handed changeups, especially for one that's kind of weak with Rays right now, is in development, and you're not going to see that. Also, with a decent amount of horizontal break, because you can see this is far away from this. Once you get closer to 12 with it, it's like, oh, hey, that's actually a decent amount. You want to see him actually jam guys inside with it, so these are good, right? I'm not a big fan of this, but this is backdoor, and it might work. Obviously, you don't want middle. Okay, cool. Right-handers, you want to see the green, which is changeup, and you don't want to see them inside against opposite-hand batters, okay? So I will grab another guy who is a right-hander just for a second too, but you want this down and away over here as much as you can changeups. That's just what it is. I'm okay generally just in the zone, but you want it to be here. Curveballs for opposite-handed batters can be two things. One, you can just kind of flip them in. Some guys are like that where they just throw it in early count, and it's like, I just need to get a quick free real estate is what I call it. And you just throw a curveball over the plate. It's like 77. Those are the ones that are like 10% usage because they only throw it early in the count and they don't use it later on for whiffs or anything like that. Those are the ones you just want to see in this, not inside and not upstairs. So you want to get rid of this 7 that you're making here. You just want these 4 boxes essentially and you're fine. Robbie Ray's is actually utilized as a little bit of a back foot. So you are going to see some of them that are like this, but generally this is actually really good and this was an effective one. I believe in this one. 36% strikes. Oh boy. So he missed with all of these is what's going on here, right? All of these were just not good. These were the effective ones. Actually, I did see inside the video breakdown I did of him that it was effective. Okay. With Robbie Ray, you just want to fill up the zone with four-seamers. This four-seamer is just really hard to hit for whatever reason. Probably the vert in the two-plane movement. So you just want to see him in the zone. That's great. You don't really want it down over here because this is kind of the danger zone. Same thing for opposite-handed batters, right? If this was a righty to over here. But this is really good. We're cool with that. And with the slider, slider should be same thing like the curve over here. Anything that's kind of floated over here is kind of not what you want. But that's how you should interpret this for the most part. And I am going to go to Ben Brown really quickly just to kind of show you a different kind of guy, which is four-seamer as a curveball. But you'll see that his approach here is he wants four-seamers against lefties here, and it's going to be curveballs. And if let's say he had a slider or so, you generally go curveball for opposite-handed batter. So I saw sliders for lefties for the right. And then with this, he's trying to go four-seamers up and then curveballs. See, this is actually not so bad with curveballs getting down over here for the most part and the four-seamers being up. He wants the Blake Snell blueprint as much as he can. But as you can see, it's again about this difference, right? And this is a really hard one. This is 84, 85, which is fantastic. You also get that 18-inch difference here. The vert is up to 17. We've seen that 15 at times, 16. So that's actually kind of cool with this. But because of the really bad steep angle, right, and the extension has gotten a little bit better, but it's not 7 feet. This is why I've been kind of down on Ben Brown. This is not the biggest vert. It's 94.5 here, and down 2 ticks from last year. He had 8 whiffs, but it was over 66 of them. So it's like a 13% swing strike rate, not like this 20% one or 17 that we see, right? And you can see also he allowed some damage on that curveball in this one, because I would imagine it's the stuff over here in this game. So that's it. That is how I utilize this app to really just get quick information on all these pitchers. And of course, I watch a little bit and do all of that. But that is your tutorial for these stats. This is Shane Baz's good fastball location over here. Way too many hittable curveballs this game. That I think was a big problem for him. He just kind of like got this in here. He didn't actually allow too much damage on it, so that's to be fair. These fastballs are generally good in a good location. This changeup is generally where you want it to be in opposite-handed batters. These are a little bit there, but we can see from the stats though, he threw a lot of strikes, and that's cool. This slider is really bad. Look at this. Floated up here, floated up here, floated up here. Where do you want to see this opposite-handed or same-handed batter? You want to see it all over here. It's not a good slider. This is a good difference from here. I mean, look at this to this. My gosh. This is also two plane here. I'm going arm side and down, and it's also really clumped, which is also really nice. That means it's consistent, which you want to see. But you also will notice that, yes, he went up in velocity again to 97 plus, but the vert used to be at 18 or so, even earlier this year. Good flat attack angle. This is why I like Shane Baz, 97, with that flat attack angle. That should be a higher vert typically. And he generally throws it upstairs as he should with that flat attack angle. So the results of this, 600 runs, oh man, 8 hits. What? This is so strange to me. I feel like this should be a lot better moving forward. It seems to me like guys were just jumping on this four-seamer over here as much as they could, and that's how it goes. All right, I hope that helped everybody. There's your tutorial for how to use this app. It is, I think, the best one in the business, and it's what I use to make my SP Roundup so much easier every single night. We're improving it as well. You can only get it with PL Pro, so go check that out. But this is the game-changing app for everybody, and that is it for today. My name is Nick Pollack. Make your bounce below and your strikeouts high.